Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sindram, and I'm coming to you here tonight with my promised review of Tomb Raider 2013. Now, before we get started, there's 2 points I need to make before we start this review. First of all, I've only played the original Tomb Raider, and even that one only just for a little bit. I picked it up, played it for maybe 2 or 3 hours, and then discarded it because I just really didn't like it. Which turned me off for pretty basically the rest of the series. So I'm going into this game with a pretty clean slate as far as Tomb Raider games are concerned. Second point is I own and as such have played the PC version. So I don't know if there are actually any differences between the PC, Xbox and a PlayStation version, but if there are, keep that in mind. I've played the PC version, so that's what I'm going to review. So let's get started. So, what's there to say about the graphics in this game? Well, to be honest, the graphics are really stunning. I mean, pretty much everything that you get across environment-wise just looks absolutely great. From the mountaintops to the monasteries to the underground caverns, it all looks the way you would expect it to look. And it's all lighted in a very good way that it just adds to the great atmosphere of the game. And all of the more natural environments, like mountains and forests, they all really feel very natural. Definitely the forest levels. It's usually something that not a lot of games get right, and which goes for trees and foliage. Just little things like that. Very difficult to render properly, and this game really nails them. Now, added to that, we get the character models. Character models are great as well. They all look very smooth. Definitely Lara Croft herself. I can honestly say she's never looked better. A couple of nice added touches there as well, specifically for Lara's model. Or that, the further you get into the game, the more she gets this rugged look. There'll be tears in her clothes, a little bit of dirt accumulating, and it just makes it look like, she's going through an adventure, and it really adds to the game. It's a little thing, but it all adds up. Now, last thing about the graphics, the camera. The camera is absolutely spot on in this game. Really, I doubt it could really get much better than it is right now. It always really is where you want it to be. And definitely in a game like this, an adventure game, where you're doing a lot of fairly precision jumping, having a good camera is very important, because otherwise you're gonna miss your jumps and wind up going headfirst into a ravine. That is never really the case in this game. The camera is always right there where you want it to be. It's like the game actually knows what it is you want to do and just nicely puts the camera there so you can go ahead and do it. Now, graphics, I have absolutely nothing to complain about. So let's move on to the sound. Let's start off with the music. Music in this game at first is a little bit difficult to rate. But that on its own makes it actually very good. Because in a game like this, you don't want the music to really overwhelm what's going on the screen. And a lot of the time during the game, this is the case. You don't really notice the music while you're actually just, going through the game, doing the platforming stuff. The music is there, but in a low enough volume that it doesn't become distracting. It does add to the atmosphere, never really distracts you from what's going on screen, which is exactly the way it should be really. When in combat, the volume does pick up a little bit and the score gets a little bit faster. And again, this is exactly the way it should be. It gets a little bit of adrenaline going while you're having the combat scenes. So again, about the actual music, there's absolutely nothing to complain about. The sound effects, on the other hand, well, I can't really complain about those either, but there's nothing really special about it. Everything kind of sounds the way it's supposed to sound, but there's nothing that really makes you go, oh yeah, that's a nice little added touch right there. It's just all kind of there and does its job. Now, the voice acting is very, very good. These voice actors managed to put the right kind of tone at the very right time that made all the conversations feel really fluent and meaningful. So again, voice acting, very, very good. So overall the sound, again, nothing really to complain about. And so far, looking very good. So let's move on to probably the most important part of the review. That's the gameplay. Okay, getting to the important parts now. Let's start off with the controls. Now, the controls for this game really are what you can expect from this kind of game. If you've ever played any kind of other third-person shoot 'em up or action kind of game, you'll feel right at home here. And the same is true for the combat. If you ever played a game like, say, Mass Effect, you'll feel right at home during the combat. Okay, granted, there is a little bit more of an emphasis here on stealth kills and the likes, rather than just running in guns blazing. It still feels the same. The controls really are the same. But they all work perfectly fine, so there's nothing to complain about there. Now, moving on to the combat and your weapons. As far as your arsenal of weapons is concerned, at very first glance you might think there's a very limited amount of weapons that you have. You only have your 4 basic weapons and your bow. It's not a lot to go with. But to be honest, in a game like this, I think that's actually the way to go. I don't think adding many more guns would have made much of a difference. In fact, I would probably think that it would have made the game worse at this point. But anyways, you get your 4 basic weapons, which you can upgrade along the way in various barely noticeable ways, which includes your bow. And yeah, it's all properly done, it all works. There's nothing really special, but I do have to say I'm happy that they only get the 4 guns and none of them are really, overpowered. You don't at any point during the game just get a weapon thrown in your lap and go like, here, you can kill everything now. Which, let's face it, is kind of boring, and they stayed away from that, and I'm really, really happy about that. The only thing I would have loved to have seen added was, I don't know, a sniper rifle type weapon. Because I've been in a couple situations during the game where I was, pinned down in range. My assault rifle would be spraying all over the room, not being able to hit anything. My shotgun would obviously be far out of its range. And my bow would be easy enough to miss with. So basically the only thing you had left at that point was your pistol. So I would have really liked a more specialized long-ranged weapon in there, but well, I suppose I could do without it. And it did make for a couple of interesting situations where you went, yeah, do I really want to spend all this time trying to kill them with my pistol, or do I risk running out of cover and just try to charge closer so I can properly kill them with my assault rifle? All in all, combat weapons, it all works really well. Now, in relation to that, you of course have a whole bunch of tools as well that help you survive. You got your basic prying axe to open doors or lock chests, which you can upgrade later on to open up bigger doors and bigger chests. You got your climbing axe to help you climb rugged walls or cliff sides. And all of this you get during the game in a very nice progressive way. And you always get enough time to learn yourself how to use all these new abilities and new tools without it actually ever really feeling, like a chore or like you're just getting too much stuff handed to you at the same time, which is really nice. Now, last thing then I have to say about this is the level up system. Now, I gotta admit, I'm a little bit disappointed by that. You got your basic level up system, you got your a couple of talent trees where you get your experience, you can put a couple of points in there. But the problem here is that by the end of the game, and in my personal case, way before the end of the game, I was pretty much maxed out in everything already, so it felt kind of pointless to have this talent tree. It would have been far better if you had a much bigger talent tree or a lot less experience, so you had to really focus on one specific area to make Laura better in. But, well, it is what it is. For what it is, it does what it needs to do, but that's basically it. It's very basic stuff. But now let's get to the bad stuff. The things about the gameplay that I think really should have been a lot better. First of all, the thing that really disappointed me was the lack of survival and crafting elements in this game. Granted, there are actual survival and crafting elements in there, but they are very basic. For example, the survival skills you have. Very early on in the game, you get taught, shocking, you're a human, you need to eat. So, what do? You go out and hunt stuff for meat. Okay, fine, great. The fact of the matter is, it's only during that very segment of the game that you actually need to do that. Otherwise, it's completely optional whether you want to hunt the animals that you see during the game or not. You only get a little bit of experience for it, that's all you get. You'll never see Laura just drop dead because she hasn't eaten in days. Which I think is really a missed opportunity. I mean, they could have done a lot of stuff with the survival element. Add a little meter for hunger or something. Give some bonuses or whatever there, and you get another nice little gameplay element that can help with the atmosphere of the game. And the same is true for crafting. Crafting is very basic. Like I've said earlier, you can upgrade your weapons, but you don't do this by actually finding upgrades and then just, putting them on your weapons. And basically, you just find random scrap, and through gaming magic, Laura just gets an extra magazine or lengthens the barrels of one of your guns. It just doesn't make any sense, and it's not much of a crafting system at all, to be honest. So, all in all, I think those two kind of disappointing and really missed opportunity there. They could have added a lot to the game if they were a little bit elaborated on. But then we come to the very worst part of the game. And that's quick time events. And there's a lot of quick time events. And I really hate quick time events. They were this close to absolutely ruining the gameplay of this game for me. They just pop up whenever you don't want them. Usually you're watching a nice little cutscene, and what do you do when you watch a cutscene during a game? Usually you take your hands off your mouse and your keyboard and just watch the cutscene. have a little bit of downtime from the actual action of the game. But now, in this kind of game, you all of a sudden, halfway during a cutscene, suddenly it starts going into a QuickTime event, and you'll see yourself scrambling back to your keyboard and your mouse, which in my case usually means I'm gonna die because I'm just not that fast. And yeah, it just really ruins the flow of the game for me. During cutscenes, I want to watch the cutscene. It's just really that simple. If I have to start watching buttons on the screen and start mashing buttons or clicking everywhere, then what's the point in even having it during a cutscene? You're not watching the actual cutscene, you're watching the buttons on the screen. So everything that's happening in the background, or actually with Laura herself, just gets absolutely lost on you. That's a really big shame. So yeah, if they'd, dialed that back a little bit, the QuickTime events, would have been a lot better. Because honestly, QuickTime events, if done in moderation, I can deal with it. I'd still rather not have to deal with it at all. I'd rather see QuickTime events just disappear from the face of the earth forever. But, if I really have to, so long as they're, well enough disguised, I'll deal with them happily. But in this game, it's just too much. It's just too much. And yeah, like I said, very, very close to just ruining the game for me. But luckily enough, I managed to struggle through it. But anyways, let's move on to the actual story. So now, I don't want to spoil anything for those of you that haven't actually played the game yet. So I'm going to keep this part really basic. Which also actually happens to be what most of the story of this game is. Very basic. Don't get me wrong, it's not actually a bad story, but it's nothing spectacular either. It never really takes you for a loop or has those, shocking moments that'll make you go, wow, damn, couldn't have seen that one coming. It's all just very predictable. But, that doesn't necessarily make it bad, of course. And in the way the story is actually told, makes it a very, immersive experience still. Definitely the fact that, you're pretty hooked to your main character. You get to see her evolve from this frail archaeologist to a badass tomb raider. And that keeps you playing, that keeps you attached to the story and to your characters. And so overall, you never really get the idea of like, wow, now the story is really getting boring. You keep wanting to play more and see more, despite the story actually not being all that great. So overall, not really much to complain about. Let's move on. Now, lengthwise, there's of course two ways to look at this game. Because there is so much optional stuff in this game, there's relics to discover, tombs for you to go and explore, a lot of optional stuff that you don't need to do to actually progress with the storyline. But if you do take the time to do all of these optional stuff, or at least most of it, then you're gonna get a lot of hours of enjoyment out of this game. If you just blast through the storyline from start to finish without bothering with any of the optional stuff, well, it's gonna be a little bit of an average gaming length time at that point, comparable to most other games of this kind of genre. But like I said, if you take the time to go for all the optional stuff, you'll get a hell of a lot of gaming hours out of this. And to be honest, a game like this, it is Tomb Raider. You might as well go and explore all the tombs, which, strangely enough, aren't even tied into the actual storyline. They're all optional stuff, but you're playing Tomb Raider. Go explore some tombs. So let's move on to the multiplayer. So yeah, the multiplayer. Multiplayer in a Tomb Raider game. Gotta be really honest with you guys, I don't really care. And to be quite honest, I don't really think Square Enix cared all that much either. Because the multiplayer in this game is not very good. It's all very, very basic stuff. Pretty much, just your average shoot 'em up style gameplay. With your shoot 'em up style, objectives, capture the flag, team deathmatch. It's very, all done before. And to be honest, done a lot better. So, if you really want to play this kind of multiplayer, to be honest, just go play another game. A better game. Well, a better multiplayer game anyway. So, that's really all there is to say about the multiplayer. It's not very good. But it's not gonna cost this game any points though, because like I said, in this kind of game, I just don't care about the multiplayer, so it's not gonna lose any points over it. So overall, what do I think about the game? Well, personally, I think Square Enix definitely has themselves a very, very solid game right here. This really is a reboot like a reboot should be done. It adds a lot of really cool stuff to both the game and the series as a whole, without actually pissing off the majority of their hardcore fans. And in case that was too subtle, yeah, I'm looking at you, Devil May Cry. But that aside, what points do I give this game? Well, for me, it gets a very well-deserved 8.3 out of 10. This is the kind of game that you should go buy right now at full price? Yeah, you probably should. But if you can actually find it on Steam during a sale, then that rating definitely goes up to a must buy. Because unless you really hate adventure type games, you're gonna find a lot of fun to be had in this game. Now, on another note, if for some or another reason you don't really have any problems with QuickTime events, or God forbid, you're an actual fan of the stuff, then you can definitely bump up that score and you should certainly go buy this game. Then again, if you really are, then you probably already played this game to death anyway. So, anyways, that was it for this review. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.